Excuse me. For those of you that don't know me, I think I know pretty much everyone on this webinar today, but my name is Brian. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of CIMA. I've been with CIMA about 16 years. Um, and I'm really excited about this new program that we're calling the Compass Network. So I know you've probably been seeing a lot of information on LinkedIn. I know we've been emailing a lot. And we're not trying to pester. We just know that, especially this time of year, for those of you in the green industry as well, it's a super tough time. And we're trying to get your attention just for a few minutes to have you take a look at this. So feel free to ask questions via the chat as we go through, or if you would like to unmute. I see a couple people do have their cameras on. That's great. Feel free to chat with me as well as we get going. I wanted to thank our sponsors, Western and Fisher. As usual, they're a huge supporter of CIMA, and this was a little risky for them. This is a new concept. It's a little bit different than anything we've done in the past, and it's very different than a lot of what's happening out in the marketplace in many industries related to virtual events. So I'll get into that in the format of the Compass Network a little bit more as we get going. So thank you for spending some time with me during this busy time of year. So we'll go ahead and get started. So essentially what the Compass Network is designed to do is to help you as the leaders in your companies and your snow team leaders, no matter how big or small you are, to really connect with other professionals throughout 2021 through 5 different events. And we're really trying to help everybody learn and grow together and stay on a cadence, a rhythm, so that as you go through the year, you're doing the things that you need to do for your snow leadership team, for your snow strategy planning, for prepping for sales for snow. We all know, and I've gotten some pretty good feedback from folks that this is a terrible time to start an event in March. And I agree, if you're in the green industry, it is a very hard time. But that's kind of the point, right? The hard part is transitioning from white to green. The white kind of goes to the wayside for 6 months or so, right? And so our goal is to help you in a manageable way keep snow in front of you and your core team through the next 8 months leading up to the season. And again, the way we want to do that is create a peer network of not just 4 or 5 individuals, but quite a few different individuals from different companies, getting to know each other more effectively, building better relationships across like roles. So your ops managers can coordinate and engage with ops managers. Your executive team can speak to executives, and there's a lot of cross-pollination that can occur. And really just kind of get feedback and ideas and thoughts from people in different markets and locations, much like we do at the Snow and Ice Symposium once a year, right? When we go to that. This is a little different in that all the events are virtual, so there's no travel required. And we'll get into the technology a bit today as well. So I'll answer questions related to that, because I know there's virtual events out there that aren't all that impactful or that haven't been great experiences for folks. And we'll address that head on. So we want to stay focused on snow year round with 5 events, kind of timed at key times during the year. We want to help the industry and CIMA and all of us grow together and develop and get better and stay in closer touch. One of the things that went as a light bulb that went off in our heads at CIMA once COVID hit, and we started to use more peer connect style networking virtual events, we realized that we could be in touch with all of you and you could be in touch with each other much more frequently than we've ever been in the past. And that's kind of where Compass Network came from. And that's what's really exciting about it, is this new opportunity to stay in touch more often. And again, part of that and part of this peer network concept is that, it's one thing as the CEO to tell your folks to do something, or for your managers to tell people to do something and to get it done, but peers tend to hold themselves accountable. So if 2 people are having a conversation and one of them says, yeah, I need to do that, and he knows he's going to talk to that person in 2 more months, and he's going to have to say, oh, I never got to it. There's a natural accountability that's built in that I think we can really leverage together. So we want to challenge all of us to to hold each other accountable and be exposed to diverse ideas and practices throughout the year and focused on snow. And again, for those of you who just jumped in, feel free to ask questions. You can unmute your, excuse me, unmute your microphones if you'd like, or you can chat questions into the chat box. So thanks for being here. So I'll give a little mechanics of how the program will work, because I know it's a little bit of a confusing marketing strategy, several layers to it. Essentially, your company would pay a single fee to grant access to all 5 virtual events in 2021. Again, that's a company pass, so really anyone in your company at your physical location can attend any of the virtual events of the Compass Network. And the way, and I'll get into this a little bit more when we talk about our strategy of how we've laid out these events. But the way these events will work, there'll be some education, and then after each education, there'll be a roundtable discussion. And at the end of the day, we'll do some action planning as teams to kind of take the next steps in that topical area. So we've kind of tried to make it, you know, a great use of your time by having actionable steps that your team can implement. And again, we'll try to build in some rapport and some engagement and a little bit of accountability for each other so that we actually act on those plans, because we all know how hard it can be to think snow in March or April or May. And that's kind of the difference, I think, with this virtual style event than a lot of others, which are typically more webinar based or pre-recorded session based, is about half the value is being there live in person and sitting at a round table and having a conversation. We can't really replicate that. So we will be able to record these sessions, the educational sessions. But I would encourage you, if you don't think you can have yourself and some of your team make these events, then I'd encourage you maybe not to register just yet, because we're really looking for people who want to be there and want to spend the time. And we all know, I think everyone has done this in the last year, where you signed up for a webinar, you knew you weren't going to attend, you said you'd get to it and watch it later, and you never did. I've done it multiple times. I think it's just the nature of time management and our busy lives. So to make this successful, you really do want to budget the time as if it were an in-person event. And that's our goal too, is to create a level of virtual event that's as valuable, maybe in different ways, as an in-person event, and more accessible for sure, right? And so if you start to get into that cost, you know, I've had a few people kind of balk at the $650 price tag. But if you really break it down, if you had one person from your company attend all 5 events, that's $130 per event. That's 4 hours per event of education and networking. If you had 2 of your people attend, it'd be $65 a person. And if you had 5 people attend, just each of them one event, it's again $130 a person. So when you start to break it down, it's not all that costly for the potential value that you'll get throughout the year leading up to the snow season. So again, we kind of want people who are serious about it. We don't expect it to be a huge group. We're looking at maybe 15 to 20 companies starting out. You know, we sent you an invite for this because we thought you might be interested and that, you know, you would see value in it. So I'm open to any questions there. In terms of how the event layout will break down, Cheryl Higley, who's on the call, but she's shy, so she probably won't speak up. She really kind of nailed it out of the park in structuring each of these 5 events to kind of follow the same pattern. So we'll kick it off in the morning with some open networking and kind of tech testing. There's always a few issues, and we'll talk tech in a minute as well. But you know, we'll give people time to get situated, get a cup of coffee, get seated at a round table. These are virtual roundtable events. And then we'll kick off a presentation with an opener with an expert in the topic or a thought leader in the topic, and they'll give a 40 to 45-minute presentation. And then we'll break out and do a roundtable discussion with people about that topic. Then we'll bring up an expert panel of snow professionals, and we'll do sort of facilitated Q&A from SIMA and from attendees. And again, these will be folks that are well vetted in the industry and have the chops to to stand up in front of folks. And we'll try to do as much as we can with Q&A and answering questions. The platform has some neat tools that we can use there. And then we'll break out again in another series of roundtables for 20 or 30 minutes to kind of talk through what we learned from the panel. And then we'll have a closer, and this one will be a little bit more specific, typically a little more action focused. And again, presented by industry peers mainly. And they will drive home these key points, and then we'll break out for that last part of the day, which is sort of pulling everything together and creating a bit of an action plan tied to the overall theme of the virtual event. And I'll give you those 5 in the next couple of slides. So again, this is 4 hours of education per event, or 20 hours of education and networking combined. So those of you that are CSPs and can't make the show this year, this is a great way to get your credits as well, just so you know. So thinking about, excuse me, I'm thinking about the 5 events. This is another area where, oh, great question. Dave Westcott had a question. He's wondering if he can have as many people from his company attend as he'd like. Yeah, Dave, I mean, you guys are a little different. I think you're a franchise, so we might want to talk about how many. Typically, we kind of manage it the way we manage membership, which is by physical location. But certainly, if you have 5 to 10 staff members or ops leaders and managers that you really want engaged in one or more of these Compass events, yes, they can attend for that one fee. We'll have a quick reg process that we'll be sending out to anyone who's registered, any companies. So you can share a link with any of your team. They can add their name to that event, and then we'll make sure they get the information to jump on that single event. So good question. Thank you. So thinking of this cadence of the year, this calendar of the year that we go through for snow, Cheryl really built kind of a cool setup here. So the first event is next week, March 25th. It's a vision focus. So it's sort of looking back at the last season. And I'll answer your question, Dave, in a second. Looking back at the last season, understanding what went well, what went wrong, kind of talking through that with your peers and your own team members. And then going through a series of expert panels and talking about talent development, job role development, and finally creating sort of a snow-specific strategic plan for your company, or at least getting that started. So that's kind of the action for that event. So really looking at the big picture, how are we going to grow and improve and get better as a snow team and as a service provider for the next season? Dave Trotter had a great question. Is there market exclusivity? Will there be multiple companies from the same market area? There probably will be. I don't think we'll limit that. The nice thing, and this kind of comes down to the more folks we get engaged, the better. The more companies we get engaged, the better. But you can certainly move around tables. So if you're uncomfortable being next to a direct competitor, it's almost like a snack and chat or being in a live room where you can just move if you don't want to share. But that's a good question. We talked about that. We just felt that, you know, we think we can mitigate that without having to restrict folks. So thank you for that question, Dave. So after the March event, you know, you'll kind of have a month and a half to plan your snow strategy and kind of keep it in front of folks as much as you can. Then we'll roll into what we call the sales jam, which will focus on snow specific sales. We'll have an expert on sales teams. And then we'll really focus in that event on connecting sales and ops leadership through better process, better communication, better systems, and selling to a standard in the industry that CIMA launched about a year ago. We launched a procurement standard. So part of our session in April will be focused on helping people understand that standard, especially your sales and ops team, and helping use that to standardize what you sell, how you describe level of service and expectations with the client, and how you hand all that off from sales to ops, because we know that can be a painful thing for folks. Excuse me. So after April, we'll roll into, excuse me, May, which will focus on innovation. Again, we're sort of trying to think big picture, trying to bring some focus to snow, even though it's not the optimal time typically, but the more we think forward, the more time we have to implement any great ideas, right? So this will be deliberate time spent with peers in May, rethinking existing practices, including how you procure equipment and people and materials, how you utilize technology and software and systems, any of your production capacity planning tools or tricks of the trade that you want to tweak or improve upon and hear from others, and even talking through sort of service failure scenarios. What could we do better or different? How are you innovating on this challenge? You know, whether it's ice storms or late March snowfalls or whatever it might be. So really focused on, you know, generating new ideas for you and giving you the time to implement those as a team. We'll take a break in the summer. I know Simon's got a big, busy schedule of stuff, and I know everybody's busy with school and work and things like that. So we hope to see some of you at one of our 4 symposium roadshows this summer in late July and August. We also have a June leadership forum event in Florida as well. So we've got a lot on the plate for summer. We don't want to kind of get too much up in your face if you're part of the Compass Network. So we'll take a break until early September when we'll really start to transition into the preseason planning, right? So we'll have a preseason tailgate Compass Network event on September 9th. This will be designed to really kick off the snow season with roundtables and peer-driven education topics on ops leadership, better site engineering, better routing and dispatch, health and safety techniques and tips, and tangible training takeaways. So helping all of your people who you want to engage be better trainers for your crews on the ground leading up to snow, and hopefully improving your snow specific training programs. I know that's a big challenge for folks, is doing more than just a preseason snow training day or two. So you'll hear from a bunch of different folks, including our experts, on how to really do more and better training without, you know, spending so much time developing it yourself and remaking the wheel, so to speak. And then our last Compass event, Network of the Year, will be a little different. You know, some of the feedback we've gotten from folks at the higher levels of commercial snow and ice management, the ones that have been in the business a long time, you kind of have the nuts and bolts down, as those companies and those leaders are really looking to give back to the industry and have a bigger impact on the industry itself as well. And that kind of helps us all. The more we're all engaging and being advocates for the industry and our profession or your profession, the more we're all seen as professionals, and, you know, our industry continues to elevate. So the October 7th event will be called Strength in Numbers, and it's really designed to help not just you, but your team connect to that higher purpose, get them engaged, get them to love the snow industry like you probably do, and get them to see the value it provides to the greater world. We'll go through kind of this cool action learning model, which is sort of designed to help us come up with new ideas that we'll try to implement in 2022 and beyond to help elevate the industry related to some of the biggest challenges, right, that we all face, you know, related to advocating for the industry, communicating with property and facility managers more effectively, and presenting a professional face as an industry to them, working on the slip and fall liability challenges that, you know, do plague this industry, talking about employee recruitment. What can SIMA and all of you in the industry do to have a better labor pool of more talented, more trained people coming in? And how does this industry become a magnet for that? And then retention and development of those people as well. So that one will be interesting. I'm actually most excited about that one, because I would love to get your people as passionate about the industry, if they're not already, as all of you are, which is kind of why you're probably here today. So feel free to ask any questions. So that's kind of the 5 events. They'll all follow to one degree or the other this strategy of an opener with an expertise, a panel with Q&A, and then kind of a closer session. Excuse me. So I'll dig in a little bit just to give you a little more detail on the next two events coming up. The one next week is on March 25th. It's the Vision Focus. First, we'll work with Phil Sexton. He'll be our opener. He'll talk postseason insights. He's a snow and ice practitioner. He's also a consultant. He's done a lot of things. Probably most of you have heard or know Phil. And he's going to kind of focus on looking at what happened this last season. He has a model he's going to walk through everybody with on assessing the snow season and coming up with ways to improve. From there, we'll discuss for a while, then we'll roll into the featured panel with Brett Lemke, Bruce Moore Jr., and Zach Strausser. They'll talk job roles and talent development, always a hot topic. I just met with them yesterday. They're all excited to kind of share what they've been doing in this area to develop talent, get people more interested in snow, develop snow-specific job roles, which can be a challenge. It was funny yesterday, they said, you don't want to have a job description for green and then all of a sudden winter hits and you say, oh yeah, by the way, you're going to help us with snow now too. It's a big transition. The work can be very different. So working on defining those roles and job descriptions is a big part of that. If you haven't done that before, it will be hugely beneficial. If you have done it, you might be able to help some others, and you'll always get ideas on how other people are doing it as well. After that discussion, following that roundtable discussion, following that panel, we'll close out with a strategic planning panel with the same folks. And they'll just kind of share their thoughts and best practices for strategically planning for snow starting in March and keeping it in front of your team as much as you can. And then we'll break out after some of that information is provided into groups to share, to create an action plan for your team. And that's about a 4-hour time commitment. If you have folks who want to just come for parts of it, that's fine. They can jump in and jump out. It's a very open platform. Our April 22nd Compass Network event will be a totally different topic, just as important. It'll be our sales jam. We'll really focus on sales and sales process. And we're doing that now before the big snow sales season hits, right? So that any changes you want to make to your sales process or team or pitch, and you can talk about it now so that you're ready in July, August, September, depending on when you start to really focus on snow. We'll review our ANSI standard for procuring snow and ice that we launched last year. Simon is an ANSI approved standards developer. And it's a fairly technical document. We'll walk through some of that information with some folks who are familiar with it. And we'll really try to sort of help your teams understand how they can use it in a sales and ops, in their methodologies. And there's a lot of opportunity there, I think, to improve and standardize some of those processes that typically have kind of become just, you kind of do the same thing every year, right? Or the owner used to do it and they handed it off to someone else and they do it like the owner did it, which isn't a bad thing, but it's always good to get other perspectives. And we spent a lot of time on that standard. A whole standards group committee worked for about 1.5 years to create those standards, review those standards, get those approved and voted on and launched. And finally, we'll focus with a company out of Milwaukee area, Wisconsin, Winter Services, very well known and respected snow company. And some of their team members are going to come talk about how they manage that handoff from sales to ops leading up to the season and how they negotiate those challenges of customer expectations and what they may have tried to sell or sold versus what ops can achieve and all of that stuff in between. So we'll talk through it with them, then we'll do some action planning for your team to try to make sure that handoff is as clean as possible from next season. So I'm excited for the sales jam too. I think it's going to be a neat event. The opener will be a gentleman named Danny Kerr. He's spoken with us before and got really great reviews. He's not a snow professional. He comes from another service-based industry. He works for a company called Breakthrough Academy. Um, and they just have great training on, building a high performing sales team. So I think we'll all get a lot out of that. Again, feel free to drop in questions in the chat. I want to talk tech for a minute. I know everybody's sort of in a different place about how they feel about virtual events, how tech savvy they feel they are, and how much time you really want to invest in that, especially as we look at potentially things getting more open and in-person meetings coming back. So the platform we use is not just a Zoom platform, and there's nothing wrong with Zoom. Obviously, we're on it now, and it's got a specific purpose. But for what we're trying to do, it just isn't enough, right? So we use a platform called Remo, R-E-M-O. All you really need is a decent computer, is what we recommend, with typically a Chrome web browser, and a webcam, and we encourage a headset, but you can get away without one. So if you can do a Zoom call with your computer, you're probably going to be fine with Remo. We don't necessarily encourage tablets or phones. Phones can work, but you'll have a better, more seamless experience because it is much more interactive. You're sitting at tables, you can move around. There's a lot of chat features and things like that. So it tends to work better with a computer. It allows us to present both to the entire group who's on the Remo event. But then again, as you can see in this lower left-hand corner, we can break down into tables, and each table has its own video conferencing experience. So like I mentioned with Dave Trotter's question, if you're sitting next to someone who you don't feel is probably you're going to be able to share openly with, then you can jump to another table, and it's very easy to do so. And again, I kind of want to make the point that we will record the educational sessions. You'll be able to get those anytime if you're registered for the Compass Network and watch those and send them to your team. But you won't be able to get the roundtable networking experience, which we feel is what kind of differentiates this type of virtual program from many others. And you can see some of the pictures. It's a nice, clean experience. Once you kind of experience the platform once, I know several folks on the call have been on it in the past. It's pretty intuitive, and you'll have no trouble. One of the things we'll do for SIMA is we'll have a help desk over on the left-hand side of the floor plan. So if anyone's having issues, we can have them come over there. We'll help troubleshoot if they're having a camera or audio issue. It happens from time to time. So we'll be prepared. We'll have several staff ready, and there is support available, and they're pretty responsive during events with Remo. So, and as you can see on this picture, it's a little blurry. I apologize for that, but you can see it works almost like a snack and chat if you've been to our Snow and Ice Symposium, where you come in a room and you pick a table. What we're going to encourage folks is if you bring more than a couple people from your team, we're going to encourage them to spread out. They all tend to want to sit together, but they're going to get more out of the experience if they meet new people and build relationships with those folks that do the same work that they do. So we'll do some encouraging to spread out, but you can self-select what table you're at. You can have side conversations if you'd like. I know a lot of that happens at the show as well. So you can jump into one of these lounges on the side and just talk business with one or two people if you'd like. We do, just to kind of tackle the technical issues that can arise up front. The most common issue is people have a browser that's not allowing their camera or mic or both access by Remo. And that's a very simple fix. We do it all the time for folks. It's like a security feature that some people have set, settings a little high. That's the most typical one, easily resolved. A little more challenging one is if someone has a fairly outdated operating system. We had someone who was on Windows 7 or Windows 8, and it just didn't jive with it. So if you're kind of on an older system, I'd encourage upgrading if you're looking at that anyway, or if you have a newer computer with newer software. People do experience a little bit more challenge with tablets in the system. They don't work great. I'll just be honest. It's not the best experience. Wouldn't encourage it. We have had people have some success with phone, not as much as a computer, but it can work. It's a little harder to move around the tables. And occasionally you have device issues, but phones are pretty easy. It usually pops up and asks you to allow this software to access your device. So most people are very familiar with that if they use any kind of apps. So again, not the best experience, but if you're going to do a phone, or some of your folks need to use a phone, I think they could probably pull it off, and we'll do everything we can to help. Occasionally people have dual monitors up, and you've probably experienced this in other virtual calls where the audio is coming through the wrong one. We can try to help with that. There's an easy solution of just disconnecting one of the monitors. Typically that resolves it. You might have to log out and log back into the system. So those are really the main issues, fairly standard. And again, we'll do everything we can to support folks during that process. And that's part of what we can do before each, like I said, each meeting will open at 10 a.m. Eastern, all 5 of these events will. But the actual experience of the presentations won't start until 10:30. So you'll have some networking time up front, some time to get situated. And if you're having technical issues, we can help you resolve those before we get started. So, I mean, Remo, like any technology, has some challenges, but it also has some great features that I'd like to share. First of all, each table has a whiteboard that we've used quite extensively in the past year to help facilitate conversations, to provide more information or links to different articles or downloadable documents. People can use it for brainstorming and facilitating conversations. So the whole table can view a whiteboard together and kind of talk through stuff. You can diagram things out if you'd like. It's kind of a neat thing. The system has a global chat, so you can chat everybody in the room, which is everybody at the event. You can also share documents if you wanted to share something to everybody, or Simon could share items to people. You can also chat one-to-one. So if you know someone or want to make a relationship, make an acquaintance, you can message them almost like a text. And you can do a table chat as well. So a lot of different ways to communicate and find folks if they're on the room and just kind of share information. During the presentation component, there will be a whole chat feature there, as well as a Q&A option where you can type in questions, and then other attendees can actually rank those up or down. They can upvote them so that the speakers can kind of gauge what people want answered first. Simon will also be facilitating questions to help. That's a neat feature. In terms of how you log in, is it all your team in one room versus everybody on a different device? I think that's going to be a little bit different for everybody. I think the best experience is if you're on your own device with 1 or 2 people, a computer with a nice quality internet connection and a good audio mic and camera. I think if you tried to have 5 or 6 people in one room access it, it's going to be tough to hear everybody that's in that room. And you just kind of raise the challenges a little bit. But I get it. It may not make total sense to have every person log in separately. So I think everyone will kind of figure it out. We had some people last year in some events that had 4 or 5 people in a room. They had a nice setup where we could see everybody, and they'd kind of move around. If someone wanted to talk, they'd get a little bit closer to the mic. So it's definitely manageable if you have good internet and you're live in the system. In terms of additional things we think we can do or would hope to do in the moving forward with the Compass Network, aside from just the events themselves, if people are interested, we've set up an online community specific to the Compass Network. So anyone who participates in any of these events will automatically be able to discuss and share documents if they'd like, and share information in this closed community. So it's only people in the Compass Network. Not sure if that's something people want yet. Part of my job will be to assess as we get going with the first event or two, what else can we do to support and make this engagement as useful as possible, and continue to build these relationships even between events. SIMA, as I've mentioned, will have multiple staff on all events to offer technical help and facilitation. We kind of look at them just like in-person events. They're just as important to us. So we definitely dedicate the time to it. And I mentioned already, all educational sessions will be recorded, and we're going to have sort of a dashboard available for any of your team to go watch, even if they didn't attend them. I mean, I'm totally comfortable with you sending that information to them as a Compass Network, subscriber, so to speak. And we'll set that up so there's no logins or anything like that. We'll make it very easy, because I know that can be a pain, especially if you're trying to get some of your other folks to watch it. So I do have a special offer for you all, since you are interested, and I know it's kind of a new concept. I'll share this out by chat too, but we have a discount code you can leverage, a $30 discount code to save 30 bucks off the Compass Network registration. Or if you're interested but on the fence, you're not sure about the whole year yet, for a limited kind of time, really just to you folks, I'm going to offer $150 per person registration just for the March event. It's not our preference. We really want, again, the company registration. We want the company to put skin in the game and get their people engaged. But if you just want to check it out for a couple of your people, you can submit here a quick, fill out a quick form, and we'll follow up with you and get you into that first event. Again, then you'd have a choice after that whether you wanted to continue. If you did, we'd just bill you the difference. If you didn't, we'd square up and be good. So I will share that discount code and that link that you're seeing on your screen right now in the chat. I'll also share the PowerPoint in PDF that you've been seeing today in PDF form. Okay, there we go. So in the chat, you should see the discount code you can copy and paste if you're going to go register. A link to the other special offer if you want to try the per person take. And then, excuse me, a way to download the PDF slides. I will make one note. We're having, and I apologize for this, it's come at a terrible time for us, but as you all know, technology doesn't always work as perfectly as we'd hoped. We are having a little bit of a registration issue in our registration system online. It deals with saved payments.